Hey everyone, you ever look at a chunk of code and your brain just shuts down? I get it. But today, we're going to see that code is really just a recipe. We're going to take a few lines of Python and use them to pull a really cool story out of some data, turning that jumble of text into one simple chart.
All right, so here it is. This is our puzzle for today. It's a full working Python script. And yeah, if you're just starting out, this probably looks like total gibberish. Don't worry, we're going to go through this together line by line. By the time we're done, I promise every single piece of this will make perfect sense. So let's start with the first part, the setup.
Okay, so before you start any project, say in a wood shop, what's the first thing you do? You grab your tools, right? Your saw, your hammer, your measuring tape. In Python, it's the exact same idea. We use import statements to grab our tools. So these first couple of lines, they aren't actually doing anything yet. They're just getting our toolboxes ready so we can use all the cool pre-made stuff inside. So I keep saying toolbox, but in programming, we call that a library. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a big collection of code that someone else already wrote. Think of it this way. Why would you build your own hammer from scratch every time you need to hit a nail? You wouldn't. You just grab one. Libraries give us all these specialized tools so we can get right to the interesting work.
Our first tool, our first library, is called Seaborn. And if we're making charts, you can think of Seaborn as our master artist. This thing is an absolute beast for making really good-looking, informative graphics. Now, you see that as SNS part. That's just a nickname. It's way easier to type SNS than Seaborn over and over again. It's just a shortcut, a convention everyone uses.
Okay, so if Seaborn is our artist, we also need something to put the painting on, right? That's where our next import comes in, matplotlib. You can think of this as the easel, the canvas, maybe even the frame. It handles all the background stuff, the real nuts and bolts of just showing the plot on the screen. Seaborn makes the beautiful art, and matplotlib actually displays it. And that last line of the code you saw, plt.show, that's literally us telling matplotlib, okay, you're up, show me the masterpiece.
So we've got our artist, we've got our easel. What's missing? Well, we need something to paint. We need a subject. In the world of data, that means we need our ingredients. We need the raw data to work with, and believe it or not, the very next line of code gets that for us.
Okay, check this out, because this line is kind of magic. df equals sns.loadDataset Titanic. What this is doing is telling Seaborn, our artist library, hey, you know that famous Titanic dataset you have built in? Go get it for me. And just like that, it pulls all that data down. We don't have to go find a file or anything. Then it stores it all in this thing we're calling df. And df is just shorthand for data frame, which is the fancy programmer word for, a table, like a spreadsheet. One command and boom, all our ingredients are in the bowl.
So what does this data frame thing actually look like? Seriously, just picture a spreadsheet. That's all it is. Every row is a single passenger on the Titanic, and every column is a different piece of info about them. There's stuff in there like their age, what class they were in, all sorts of things. But for our little project here, we only care about two columns. The one called who, which is just man, woman, or child, and the one called fare, which is how much they paid for their ticket. It's this simple, organized grid that lets us tell the code exactly what to look at.
Okay, tools, check. Ingredients, check. Now it's time for the recipe itself. This next chunk of code is the main event. It's the step-by-step instruction that tells our artist, Seaborn, precisely what kind of picture we want it to paint.
This line here, SNS barplot, this is the command center, and inside the parentheses, we're just feeding it the recipe. First, x equals who. That just means put the categories from the who column on the bottom. So a spot for men, a spot for women, and a spot for children. Simple. Next, y equals fare. This tells it the height of the bars should be based on the fare column. And finally, data equals df. This is the most important part. This tells the function where to find those columns. It's like saying, look in that df table we loaded earlier. See, it's a super clear instruction, make a bar plot, using this data with these columns on these axes.
And that's basically it. We've gone through every single line. We grabbed our tools, we got our ingredients, we followed the recipe. So after all that, what do we actually get? What does this code make?
And here it is. All that code, all those lines of text, they boil down to this one single chart. But here's the really cool part.
Did you notice we never told it to calculate an average? We didn't have to. The barplot function in Seaborn is smart. It automatically looked at all the men, calculated their average fare, and drew the bar. Then it did the same for the women and the same for the children. And those little black lines you see on top of the bars, those are called error bars. They just give us a quick idea of how spread out the ticket prices were for each group.
Okay, so we've cracked the code. We know what every line does. That's great, but making a chart is only half the battle. The whole point is to see if there's a story hidden in the data. So now that we have this picture, what is it actually telling us about the Titanic? Well, the story jumps right out at you, doesn't it? That bar for women is way higher than the others. That means, on average, women paid the most for their tickets. Then came the children, and then the men, who, on average, paid the least. It's wild. With just a handful of lines of code, we've just uncovered a really interesting little social and economic fact from a huge historical event.
And really, that's the whole point of this. That block of code that looked so intimidating at the start, it wasn't a wall. It was a key. It let us ask a question and get a simple visual answer right back. It just goes to show you that code isn't only for building websites or apps. It's an incredible tool for discovery. Which kind of makes you wonder, right? What other stories are just sitting out there, hidden in data all around us, just waiting for someone to unlock them with a few lines of code?